Hello, Lord of Life. My name is Chris Elenbaum, and for my Creative Community Showcase, I'm going to introduce you to the brewing process. Brewing is one of my passions in life. The first time I brewed was in 1997. I was out in Los Angeles, California. What you see behind me is quite a complex system. That's what we're going to brew on, and I'll demonstrate to you. But brewing can be very simple. It can be done with the right ingredients on your stovetop and a fermenter, which is as simple as a plastic bucket like this. What I like the most about brewing is that it brings a lot of fellowship. It's an opportunity to work together with some of your friends, and you can also enjoy the beer together, which I often do here at our house.
The beer making process is rewarding in a bunch of different ways. The most fun aspect of it for me really is being able to spend time with my friends, coming over here and enjoying a beer, but also starting with absolutely raw goods, walking through the process of extracting the sugars from them, turning them into alcohol, and then turning them into beer. So it's just fun. Being able to spend time with your friends doing something that's going to result in a wonderful product, in a wonderful beer, because if you've had a chance to drink Elenbaum beer, it's pretty good stuff.
This is called the Sabco Brew Magic System. There are three main sections of the system. The first is called the hot liquor tank. It doesn't actually hold liquor. All we put in here is hot water, and we bring the water up to the right temperature that we're going to use in the mash process. The mash tun is the second component of the system. We start by adding water to this side of the system, and then we pour the grains into it, and we bring this to a desired temperature. The third portion of the system is called the brew kettle. This is where we move the hot liquid that comes off of the mash into the brew kettle, and we bring this up to a boiling temperature. Once we get to that step, we'll talk a little more about what happens during the boiling process. Malted barley is the key ingredient of brewing. This is a dark roasted barley, long kilning and higher temperatures. This barley is used to create color and additional flavors in the beer, like chocolate and coffee kind of flavors. Another common ingredient we find in beer is wheat. This is wheat used in a Hefeweizen very commonly. And we also use corn. This is flaked corn, dried out, and ready to be used to convert into sugar. We're combining the grain with hot water. Dave is mixing all the grains in with the water to create what we call the mash. We're looking for a certain consistency of the mash. If it's too thick, that's not good. If it's too thin, that's also not good. We have about 10 pounds of grain that are being used to make 5 gallons of beer. So right now we're creating what's called the wort. We're bringing the temperature of the mash up to 145 degrees. This is a key temperature because we're activating a couple of different enzymes in the barley, specifically alpha amylase and beta amylase enzymes. These two enzymes, what they're doing is they're chopping the long sugars of starch essentially into very simple sugars like glucose. The glucose is really easily digested by yeast and turned into alcohol and carbon dioxide. So we're in the final stages of the mash process. We brought the temperature up to 158 and stabilized it for a while. And now we're bringing it up to 168, and we're going to get ready to move the liquids into the brewing kettle. And then we're going to add additional water in what we call the Sparge process. So what we're doing is adding additional hot water at 170 degrees, and this will flush all the sugars out. And we're gradually moving this through and into the brew kettle. You can see in the brew kettle we have a false bottom. The purpose of the false bottom, much like the bottom in the mash tun, is to separate any of the solids that are going to accumulate. All right, what we have here is called Humulus lupulus. This is the flower of a hop plant. Today we use about 150 different varieties of hops. Some produce flavors like citrus or tropical fruits. Others produce flavors of herbs and spices. This is the hop flower itself. The most common way we use it though is they crush the hop flower up into pellets like this. We're adding 1 ounce of German tradition hop. All right, our boiling is still going. We have a rapid boil, very vigorous. The boiling does several things. First, it destroys any enzymes that are remaining in the wort that are having a reaction. Secondly, it's clarifying the beer by coagulating proteins together. Third, it's extracting the oils out of the hops and the essential bitterness of the hops, which is how we achieve the bitterness of beer. And then it's also sterilizing the wort in preparation for moving it into the chilling process and the fermenter.
Dave is using a refractometer to measure the amount of sugar that's in the solution.
We just turned off the heat and we're going to run it through a chiller system. For my system, I'm using a heat transfer plate. And what we're going to do is we're just going to simply run the beer through the heat transfer plate using our cold water from the house supply, and that's going to chill it from 212 degrees down to about 70 degrees. Now here's where the magic happens. We've got our wort inside of the fermenters. We're going to add a brewer's yeast to it. This is a rehydrated dry yeast, and it's a lager. It's made to ferment around 50 degrees, so that's why this is in the refrigerator. In about a week to 2 weeks, the beer will be ready to move to a keg for carbonation. I learned to brew using a simple book. The first book I ever bought was The New Complete Joy of Home Brewing, written by Charlie Papasian. Charlie is a legend in the brewing community. Charlie started the American Homebrewers Association, also a magazine called Zimmergy, and also the Great American Brew Festival. Charlie has been an inspiration to many people over the years. When he started brewing, there were very few microbrews in the United States, virtually none. Today, we have over 7,000 microbreweries in the United States. Virginia has almost 100, over 100, I believe now. The state of Colorado has roughly 400 microbreweries. And the amount of microbrewing in this country has put the United States above the rest of the world in terms of innovation in brewing, originality, the number of styles and unique beers that have come out. I'm here with Kurt Mattingly from the Lutheran Brew Crew. Kurt's been leading up our brewing activities for the church for several years now. I really enjoyed brewing with the Lutheran Brew Crew because we get to brew large barrels of beer. This is a 55-gallon barrel right here.
Started this when Pastor Nathan came over to my house one day to visit Nancy, and lo and behold, I happened to be brewing that day, and we got on a discussion about that, and he had a friend that was opening a brew church down in Florida. Anyway, so we got talking about it. I said we ought to start a brew group up within the church, and since Lord of Life had never even allowed alcohol on their premises before, that was kind of an interesting discussion, but Nathan was open to it. And we started it off, and after our first brew group, and he made some announcements, lo and behold, we found out in the church that we had an honest-to-God brewmaster. And Charlie Bootner gave him his business card, and Charlie is CEO and head brewmaster down at Fairwinds Brewery. So we've been working with him, and he's been helping us out as well. But what I really like about it is, first off, we've made some really good beers. We enjoy them, and I think we're going to do some of that today. Chris, it's a good idea to enjoy Friar's Reserve, which is our current barley wine effort. If you do the honors of... and we'll pour it in a clear glass so you can see what it looks like. That's good. For me, it's really about the fellowship. I've gotten to know more people in the church through this effort than I ever would have otherwise, especially people from Clifton. I would never have met the people that I've met just going to church in Fairfax if it weren't for that. And our motto has always been, just like Nathan ends the service, next week, bring a friend. So we encourage people to bring friends all the time. And we are really interested in teaching people how to brew. And I think we've been very successful in that. We've had a lot of people. We've got over 100 people on our email list. And on a big brew day, we could have 30 to 40 people show up, but we usually start brewing about 8 o'clock in the morning, and we go till like 9 o'clock at night. We do that once a year. We don't do that very often. Prost.
Prost.
We really hope you enjoyed the brewing process because Chris and I sure do. Cheers.
Cheers.